Let's go.
Okay, hello everyone. I'm here with Fergal D'Arcy. He's a bit of a Galway legend. So he agreed to do his interview with me for Scrimshaw. So thank you very much. We're here at Momentum Fest.
Yeah, here at Momentum in Oranmore in Galway. First of all, congratulations on your first publication. I saw all the stuff online. Very impressed. Takes a lot of work, so fair play. Yeah, Momentum. What a day! Like what a festival. It's a weekend, but today it's all about the old school dance and the tunes. So it's really good fun.
It's been a savage day so far. It's 6:30. We got here at 2, filling up with people. They're having a great time.
Yeah, well,
People of every age.
Mark McCabe was on there a couple of minutes ago, and I was just on before him. But the crowd, they were there. They were ready to rock. That's 5:30 of a Saturday afternoon. The tent was open. So you can only believe what's it going to be like later on,
Oh, it's going to be, it's filling up as well.
Rammed, yeah.
So, might dive straight into the questions.
This is it now. This is your life, Fergal D'Arcy.
Okay. For those of you who don't know, Fergal's very embedded in the Irish music scene. He's done iRadio. It used to be I102.104 when you were on it, wasn't it?
No. So originally I started in Care FM, and then I was only there for a year and a half, and I was in iRadio for the launch of iRadio, which was originally meant to be in 2007.
Oh, so the changeover.
Yeah, it was launched in 2008 as I102 104. And I was on the original lineup, and I was there for 8 years. But about 3 years in, because of the recession, they couldn't afford to pay everyone, so they had to kind of make cutbacks. That was a really hard time actually for a lot of us, because we're all friends, and there's no part of being in a radio station more exciting than being there for the launch of a radio station. And like for us, I102 104 was just so aimed at the west of Ireland. It was Tommy and Hector and Peter, Barb and Conica, what a fabulous broadcaster, Chris and Mary. And that was back in 2008, February 2008, that launched. It's 18. And then eventually they merged I105, 107, which was the eastern counterpart to I102 104 together, and became iRadio. But at that time, the country was just rock bottom. There was no money. They couldn't keep Anta going. We were a brand new business. But eventually they made it viable, and now they've sold it. So it's sold on its power habit. But what a brilliant, excellent station to start out with, really and truly, because we had such freedom. And times have changed, like the PC brigade are out now to cancel everyone. You know what I mean? But we got away with stuff that nobody was getting away with back in those days. Now, I understand there were certain things that we did that, I apologize, but in that same time, it was a different time,
Well, for me, I102 104 shaped me. I like going around the van, me and my brother. He's 32 now, but like going around the van with our dad, and that was playing all the time. My dad listened to you, literally. He used to work as a carpenter, and from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m.
Well, because the funny thing about radio is that if you're on breakfast or you were on drive, you share an audience because people listen to you going to work and coming home. And I've always found that in any station I've been in, like when I was in Today FM, myself and Ian Dempsey definitely shared an audience. We were talking about it only recently. We were saying they'd all stay in. Like, so if Ian had good numbers, I was nearly guaranteed that audience would be coming over to me, whether it be parents collecting kids or people that were working basically radio, But yeah, it's phenomenal. Like, yeah, and I'm flattered that you did tune in, because at the time it was hard to build up this issue. But I think, like, at the time you go from zero, and I think at one stage in iRadio, I was up at 117,000 listeners, and that's over 15 counties. That's not even national, and they're national figures. And you're just thinking to yourself, with that trajectory, and I think like it's very hard to do that now, because radio isn't. You see, it's like Netflix and television, like with television, like Netflix, Paramount, Disney, they come in, they took over, so people only really watch television if there's a match on, if Dancing with the Stars is on. Whereas with radio, we're getting that now with Spotify and podcasts and music. Like, why would you listen to random songs on the radio when you can pick the music yourself, So that is, I suppose I'm not really in the radio market anymore, but that's definitely one of the things that it's kind of hampering radio at the moment.
We got so nostalgic there. We kind of forgot where we were going. So you were in iRadio, then you moved to Today FM.
I moved to Today FM in 2015, was there until 2022, and then I moved to 2FM after that. And I've just kind of been in and out of 2FM doing cover shifts and things like that, maternity leave. Yeah, at the moment I'm kind of just as I said, I'm on sabbatical. I'm actively looking for work. If there's any radio stations out there looking for someone, I'm available.
ATU is going to start one now just for you. But so, how would you describe the state of the music scene now for bands, especially bands starting out? That's kind of our lane as we're trying to push people. So in Scrimshaw, it's the 5th year that it's been out, and this year was the first year that they introduced music into it so that they had QR codes and it bring up your link to play the song. So how would you describe the state of the scene now for people that are just getting into it?
It's funny because particularly from working in radio, you are meant to have a remit of Irish music. Now I know with the license in iRadio, we did have to play a certain amount of Irish music, and the guys in iRadio still to this day, they're great champions of Irish music. That wasn't the same in other stations. They might have had a remit of 40% of music has to be Irish. They tune in 1 o'clock or 2 o'clock in the morning, they're banging out all the Irish songs there. So it's funny, a friend of mine recently was in BIM and he asked the students in BIM, how many of you, listen to radio? And only 3 people put their hand up. And the response is that we don't think that our tracks would get played on the radio. And that is a very fair response. I remember talking to Music Cork.
It's bad.
It is, yeah. It's very sad. Like that, one of the things that I would have been known for, particularly with my time in Today FM, that I championed Irish music. That was what it was all about. And from day one, like I was on 7 to 9 when I originally got there for 9 months, and then I went to daytime. But from day one, from 7 to 9, I remember myself and Ed Smith for the conversation, and it was more or less along the lines, we're going to do loads of sessions with loads of Irish artists, get them in, expose them. Ray D'Arcy had just left the station. Ray D'Arcy was a brilliant champion for Irish music. He really exposed a lot of Irish artists, but like there was a gap in the market, and we kind of went, okay, we're going to become those guys. And when we went to daytime, we stayed doing that. But I've seen so many brilliant Irish acts. Like I don't think the market has changed so much. Like you have to remember, when I started in radio, we would have CDs sent into us. Now you get a link to a file, and you'd have a bundle of CDs on one side that you've listened to, and you'd have another bundle that was this high, and you haven't listened to them yet. You never get a chance to listen to them all, but you do your best to get through as many of them as you can. So just coming back to the bands, I found, particularly when I was in Today FM, is if I want to be the best to champion Irish, or if I want to approach being the best to champion Irish music, I have to go out and see it. I have to go out and see the bands and make that effort. And we have, like, if you ask me right now about the state of Irish music, I think that we were in a good state, but people weren't getting played. But definitely now, I think that Irish music, because you can now set up a studio in your room, I think Irish music has so many different facets. Like we used to be known for singer-songwriters, our band, right? Now we've got hip-hop artists, we've got punks, we've got singer-songwriters, we've got jazzy, like one of the biggest songs on Spotify. You know what I mean? Like, you know what I mean? And I so many people like work out of their bedrooms now. Like it's steady. You can get Logic or you can get Ableton, and you set yourself up on Shure SM7B, Booster, a couple of plugins, and away you go. And that's what I like. Like that. And at the moment, like we're looking at artists like Calvin Harris is the first person I remember ever, and Calvin's Scottish. But Calvin Harris was the first person I remember. He brought that album, I Created Disco. He had done it all in his bedroom, and I remember thinking to myself, "Oh my God, that this could be really good for music," because now people who couldn't afford to cut an album they cannot do it now. And like cutting albums isn't the way to go now. It's changed. It's all single releases, exposure. Like nobody's looking for radio plays now. What you need to do is get your track on TikTok and get it popular with some. But I do think that Irish fanboys were in a very, because the Cliffords are going to be here. Iona and her crew, like they are staying station. The Rose Caps in Galway also got New Dads. Slayer Eyed. Like there's so many good bands. Like, do you know who's really good as well? Gillian Connolly is an excellent musician from this neck of the woods. But as I said, like what I can't understand is there was one national radio station for a year and a half did not have one Irish song on their A-list. I'm not going to mention the name of the station, right? But they didn't have one Irish song on their A-list for over a year and a half. And this is in a time when we had Amble, Kingfisher, Seamat, The Fontaines.
Oh, yeah, so this is recently. Isn't it time that's now?
For a year and a half. And it just makes you scratch your head and kind of go, hold on a second. Like, our music is way more important. I made this argument on a Music Cork years ago that, in Canada and in France, they have this rule that, you have to play 40% of their national music on daytime radio each hour, right? The result in Canada was Canadian artists started to emerge out of the woodwork. So Justin Bieber, Drake, they might never have got a chance if Canadian radio didn't make a rule to say, look, 40% of your music has to be Canadian. And I think that's what we should do here. I've always said
Kind of push that in the Irish radio.
yeah, I'm 100%. Like, I don't understand. Like, we've got Gavin James, Dermot Kennedy, Hosier. They're the ones that we see getting played. But we've also got the Coronas, Roisin, we've got Fontaines, we've got CMAT. Like, I thought it was ridiculous for a long time that Fontaines were not getting daytime radio play when they're one of the biggest, like, they're getting Grammy nominations, like, you know, and Brit Awards. And we're kind of going, like, what's going on here? Like, you know, like, why aren't you, you know, the same, like, Sprints, bands like that, like, they need to be champions, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And the good thing about it is we've got so many young bands, we've got so many middle-of-the-road bands, and we still have the older bands on the circuit as well, like Stunning. So we're in a really healthy place music-wise. We just need people to start going. Like, musicians will tell you, they're like, selling albums, selling singles, that's not where the money is made. It's made with live gigs, live events, tour.
That's why we're here at Momentum.
Exactly. But I do think the appetite is there. You know, where you go to, when you see artists selling out the Tree Arena and they're not getting radio, but it makes you scratch your head. You know.
Have you noticed a difference in the like live music scene since COVID?
100%, yeah. So what COVID was brilliant for, and MCD was brilliant in around the time of, do you remember they had the Pilot Festival? It was all Irish acts. It was Denise Chila. It was Gavin James headlined. Wild Youths were there as well. Like, there was some really good Irish acts that day. And I remember thinking to myself, God, we've got so many great Irish acts. And there was only a restricted amount of few because everyone had their own little bubble in there. And I remember being at the gig. After that, then, there was Oranmore, which was where Independence was, down in Mitchelstown, where they had...
Oh my God, it went my heart.
I loved it. Like, one of my favorite... And that was probably one of the best festivals for champion, like, Irish artists like Robert Grace. Like,
Rose Cats played there as well.
Yeah, Rose Cats. Yeah, and Rose Cats, one of those bands. Keep an eye, like vocally and instrumentally, they're just so talented. I had a chat with a friend of mine who's working over in Dubai, did a lot of work over there, and he just says to me, he says, "Is there any chance I could get those lads?" And at the time, I was going, "You probably no." Like I said, they're kind of getting bigger now, and they have to kind of stay on it. But it's amazing to see so many Irish artists like Orla Garrett and others like moving over to England because that's where they have to go to make it music-wise. Sad, you know?
Yeah.
We're a great country. We have got the best musicians.
Because I personally feel like I grew up in Galway, so, but I think you did as well.
Yeah.
And like, we're kind of, outside of Dublin, the hub for arts in Ireland, I think.
It's funny, right? The music scene is funny. Like, Galway has always been a great town for live music and for dance music. It has always been sensational for getting in the DJs, getting in the acts. I think that there's two names that really have to be mentioned here. Gary Munro from Munro's has been outstanding when it comes to bringing in arts. Like, that guy is just, he has a heart of gold. He's excellent for an artist. He gets them in. He invests in the artist. He invests in putting on shows. And he's unbelievable. And of course, the Roisin Dubh, Coogie and the guys as well. Like, I was only, the other day, I was doing a chat there along with Rap, who are the recorded artists, actors and performers. AIM, which if you're a musician, you watch this, you should check out. You probably know about these, the Association of Irish Musicians, and of course IMRO as well, the Irish Music Rights Organisation. And it was an information night. I was chairing the panel and basically talking to musicians about, you know, why you should be involved, you know, what you're entitled to, you know, you should be getting paid for what you're doing. Yeah, but like, we were doing another one at court next week, and it's fun we do with yourself.
What's the date? I put this on the...
Sorry?
Can you give the date?
It's next Wednesday. But I'm not sure. Mean nothing to me anymore. Yeah, so the story is like we grow, but like some of the questions musicians have, like, we're living in a time of AI. You want solo to build a song for you.
Every creative person that you meet now, that's one of the first things they say.
But they're worried, and they're right. Like, I mean, you know, you can just say, I want to do this song here, the lyrics, blah, blah, blah. And there's obviously rights issues with that if there is a sample taken from somebody else, or, you know, I'm not going to get into the nitty gritty of it, but those talks are actually brilliant for explaining that to musicians. And it's a really good opportunity to network. It's called Making the Connection. It's really a good opportunity. And some of our Ireland, like, we're just going back, to Munro's and like Roisin Dove. We were blessed here in Galway that we had those, and they've been great live venues for years. Like I remember when I started my radio, I went to see Five Like Ape, Adabisi Shank, all those brilliant bands. I remember seeing those in Roisin Dove early days, and it was great for us because we were working at a Galway Wellpower at the time. We wanted to know the bands, we wanted to get to know them, and these days. But Limerick had Dolan's, Dublin had Weavens, Kerry had Michael Pies in the Stole. And like these are the big music venues. But if you think of the Midlands, actually, and even Sligo, I don't know that there is, I don't know if there are Whelans or Dolans in the Midlands. Do you know what I mean? And it's such a pity because, like, obviously you have to go through the Midlands if you're coming from east to west. So,
in your opinion, what separates an artist who is starting out that was make it and not make it? Because you've seen people go from.
I would take you straight out. I have seen this across the board. Unless you're given 100%, you ain't going to get 100% back. And I've met artists like this who, you know what I mean, put in 25% and start complaining. And I'm not like it. Everyone knows this person. Everyone knows this person. This is not a lie. There are artists out there, who kind of, just like to get by and they're easygoing, things like that. And you got the likes of the Coronas who put in 120%.
They do 1,000 shows a year.
Everything they do is like literally they work so hard. If they're not in the studio, they're out on tour and they know it's a hard graft. They're like that whole family, like Mary Black, Roisin, Danny O'Reilly, and all the guys as well, Noxie, Connor, Lara Kay, the guys from True Tides, King, like those guys, they never stop, they never turn off. That's what 100% means, and that's why they get the gigs. That's why they're going to be down here playing tomorrow night. Do you know what I mean? And they do, like, no matter where you go in Ireland, if you put a Coronas on, you're fitting it. You're fitting it. And there's not many bands.
They've had a very sustaining, like a lot.
Yeah, they've always kept reinventing their sound. At the moment, like they've got this really nice sound. It's like the National, but it's their sound. They own it. They've always owned their sound.
Mm-hmm.
McGanny's fabulous voice. Like the lads, as musicians go, they're very, very talented. Like, hey, their guitarist at the moment is probably one of the most talented guitarists in the world, let alone Ireland. Back to your question, if you're not willing to give 100%, you're not going to get it back. The other thing I would say to you as well is don't expect anyone to hand you anything, and always see the elephant in the room. Like, I know so many people that.
What do you mean the elephant in the room?
The elephant in the room is that somebody comes along and says, "Oh, I'll manage you," and know yourself.
That'd be a war.
Spot a bad manager. Do you know what I mean? Like, run things by yourself for as long as you can. Cut out all the other people for as long as you can until you meet the right person that can take you further. Like, somebody that's tried and tested is always a safe bet. Always a safe bet. But don't just take a manager for the sake of having a manager. And the same with record labels. Make sure you check out every part of that deal, because if they put 10 or 20 grand into you, that's why most of Irish musicians are independents, is because, like, if the record label puts money into it, they want money back. Like, and we see yourself out of pocket Ferrari.
It's very interesting, actually, because like all the people that are my age that are starting out, or maybe they've been doing it for years, they're all independent.
Yeah. But like, I do think, like, you can chat to bands like Gronas and they'll say the best thing they ever did was start their own label. It's far so good. And that, I remember at the time when they started so far so good. Like, I remember thinking, okay, this is really clever idea. They've done a lot better since they've done that.
Yeah.
As opposed to being on an air with someone like that. It's so important, like, like, there's always people that are going to try to sponge it.
When people are trying to get their music heard, because obviously now it's social media and everything like that, there's a lot of pressure to gain a following. And I was just talking to D-Ream earlier, and they were saying that they think that's quite false, that those people are going to, like, actually, a lot of those people aren't going to follow you, take in your music and be someone to help you grow. So in your opinion, what do you think artists, something maybe that they misunderstand when they're trying to get heard, when they're trying to grow?
I will tell you straight out, word of mouth and sampling music, as in going to see the act, has always been the way that I have found the best artists. Now,
word of mouth.
Word of mouth. Word of mouth.
That's so interesting.
So, like, you'll hear your friends, or on Spotify, you can actually see what your friends are listening to. It's gas. But like, the funny thing is that, like, that for me has been the major way that I have connected with musicians and artists. And something, it's so humbling when you arrive into a room and you're talking to musicians. Like, even the likes of John Luke there, the last day he was doing a couple of songs, great Galway musician. And immediately he was like, "Oh, Funner, how are you?" And like it's people don't forget. They don't forget that, like, you know what I mean, that, you're championing Irish music. Like, you will push bands. But I think that's why I think it's always important to share stuff. Chase and Abby are very interesting.
my God, I love.
Yeah, but Chase and Abby are a very interesting case study because Chase and Abby, their music is predominantly pushed via social media, and they're very good with it.
But they were around way before.
Of course. Like they were like Chase and Abby were around since 2016, maybe. And they're the best guys in the world. I've played times with them. I've done loads of gigs with them. I would say that there's a case study there of what their management did with them and how they use social media to push us with it. But sure, that's how you reached out to me, was via social media. Like that's most of the business is done in social media. And I'll be honest with that. And like that's why it's always important for musicians to think about, how can I push myself? What can I do? Like Amble, Kingfisher, bring it like Kingfisher. Kingfisher became popular because they were going around into people's kitchens and singing a few songs. Like that is genius. So I think my advice would be like, be clever with social media and never never try to be cool. That's being cool is something that you earn with time. Like, nobody wants to be cool. Like, you know what I mean? Just be yourself.
Mm-hmm. So interesting. Yeah. I think there's a lot of pressure to kind of build up a following and just like, even you see people and they're posting all the time, like every single day posting something. And it might even make sense because they're convinced that like the more content that they put out, the more that they will gain, basically. Like there's this thing on TikTok.
That's gain. You see, if you overpost though, and it's rubbish, people will just turn you off.
Yeah.
Or they'll unfollow. So you got to be very, very careful with that. But like, there's a very funny thing too as well. Like apart from social media, myself and John Gibbon, who's another DJ that had been known around the circus, we had a conversation one day, and John said to me, he said, I think Fergie says, like, when you're building a show, there's a lot about the showmanship too as well. Like that's one thing I always say about any of my gigs whenever I'm playing, is that like I'm working the crowd, so I'm also doing MC, and I'm building up their energy and kind of trying to bring my energy onto them. And I think John does a lot of that as well. But I would say the exact same thing to the other bands, like, you know what I mean? Build the show. Don't just go out and like, willy-nilly, like say we're just going to perform it. Have stories for your songs. Like Gary Lightbody for Snow Patrol. You'd never assume him to be a hilarious guy, but he is one of the best foremen at this. Like he tells stories between the songs, and people want you because of that. And I think that's important for bands to know as well.
Because personality goes a long way.
Absolutely. It's so important.
But I think a lot of people, and this is just my opinion, because I was actually like I wasn't ever shy, but like really anxious person when I was growing up, are afraid to express themselves, especially with the rise of social media and being mean and stuff. Like afraid to put yourself out there and be any way different, It's
just so funny. One thing I don't miss about radio is like for like every 100 or 200 comments you get in the text, there'll be one person abusing you. And you go home that night and the only comment you remember isn't the 200 lovely comments, it's the one person abusing you. But there is like that.
And it's usually someone with a fake profile picture.
Yeah. I remember one day there was somebody leaving up very nasty comments about one of my work colleagues, and I walked by a PC and saw that the login on it was actually the username on boards. And I was like, who's that? And I found out who it was, and I was like going, oh my God, that person who has been nasty actually works with them. Do you know what I mean? Like, so that goes on. Like, you know what I mean? There's jealousy is the kind of a thing too. But I would say this, like, you know what I mean? You gotta, like, once you put yourself out there, like, as a public profile, particularly to young musicians, you know what I mean? Be ready for it. There is going to be, if everyone likes you, you're doing something wrong. Like, and that's the truth. Ricky Gervais said that, not me. If everyone likes you, you're doing something wrong. So, like, if you go out there, be prepared. There's going to be the people who are like, no, here's their music. But there's also going to be your followers. And remember, we're Paddies. We're all over the world. Do you know what I mean? You can do a gig here, you can do a gig in New York, you can do a gig in New Zealand, and you'll have a crowd. You know what I mean? So it's important to kind of remember that,
Do you have time for one more?
We'll do one more, yeah.
Yeah. You've had quite a sustaining career. But if you go back to the beginning of your career, what's one thing you would tell yourself that you know now that you didn't know before?
God, it's funny, I would have told myself to enjoy myself more. Like I always was a hard worker. That was never a question. I was self-sufficient as well, in the sense that I would look after the production and I would look after the presentation and I'd look after the driving the desk and things like that. I loved iRadio. I think that, making the move to Today FM, it's a different market. One thing that I always miss when I went to Today FM is you know, when you're on radio, like you're always associated with like younger people and having a crack and
Urban.
gigs.
You're like,
But when you go to Today FM, it's an older crowd, it's an older audience, and like they don't really know you as like, oh, he's a DJ, and you know, he's not just a presenter. Like he actually does mix music, and he's on, you know, whatever. Like that's all irrelevant. I would tell myself to enjoy every bit of it. I don't know about a sustaining career, in the sense that the one thing that has always been sustainable for me has been the performance part, the onstage part. You know, so MC for events, been host for the likes of this, also like been a DJ. Like you'll always have work doing that. But with the radio stuff, like I'm struggling now, like as in, I'm a radio gig at the moment.
you should start a podcast.
Well, I do a lot of work with podcasts. That's also under the umbrella. So I produce a lot of podcasts for different people. It's actually funny.
Like you should make your own. Like you have no problem talking.
I know that, but it's the future proofing of your career. Like, you know, you can make a podcast, that's grand. It's not, you're not monetizing it. Do you know what I mean? Whereas if you're a producer, you get paid. Do you know what I mean? So like at the end of the day, we all have to pay bills. So that's the most important thing, like, you know.
You're a bit of an all-rounder.
Yeah, well I do, yeah. But I have a kind of a company and then everything is done under that. Yeah. So the company gets paid and I get a wage. And that's it. But yeah, no, I think the one thing I would tell myself is just to enjoy every minute of it. I think my favorite part of my whole career was doing stuff for charity. I loved that. Like Dare to Care. I have a tattoo there, and it's like I remember we set out doing this tour, the Big C tour, and like nobody else would have been trusted to do what we did. Like Self and Ed Smith, a cameraman called Peter Cooney, who works with Joe Daddy at the moment, such a brilliant musician as well. And called Levain. Check them out if you're into rock.
I love rock.
This is proper metal. The only type of music, let's be honest.
I went through a very strong emo phase, but
Yeah, oh, I know. You're not the only one. But come here. The funny thing is that I remember going out in that tour, and we were broken. Like for 3 days, we're on the roads. Got a tattoo. I did this drag race where I had to dress as a woman and race along the lads, right? Then we did the Dip in the Nip in Athlone, and we climbed Carntool, the biggest seat of them all. Those raised money for the Irish Cancer Society, but we got so many lovely messages in, and you get back to the office and everyone just like from your peers there's nothing that compares to that. High praise from people that you really respect. I just think, and there was lovely days like that in my radio as well too. I can guarantee you this much: every show that we ever did, it was perhaps overproduced. We were so tight. That first year, myself and Peter worked so hard. Like every show, we treated it almost as if it was a performance. So like we had every segment done. You know, we'd have pre-recorded interviews, pre-recorded calls. If there was thoughts that we needed to get done, we pre-recorded them so we could be working whilst they were going out. You know, so we were just using techniques that they'd used in television and other places for years. It's just that we were just kind of quicker to market. But production, like we were always ideas men. We would never say we were presenters. We were always the producers, ideas men, creators. Like that was kind of the mentality. And I have to say, like Peter Ganley, I learned so much from him.
The name dropping has been incredible.
No, but our friendship like has been phenomenal over the years. Like he's just always had my back. And I've been saying for him, you know.
So you think hard work and professionalism was key?
That's the one thing I would say actually too as well about this industry, whatever showbiz you want to call it. Whether you be an actor, a performer, or an artist, always maintain your professionalism. You know, like if you get the honor of being amongst your peers and playing with your peers, give it 100%. You know what I mean? Never be entitled. Like, you know, the people that step on other people's toes don't make it. You never make it. Also remember too as well, like if you look at the lifespan of bands, not every band lasts for 20 years. So if you were in a band and things wrapped up, don't be afraid to move on. I'll give you an example of this. Brave Giant were a brilliant band from Longford. They sold out the Olympia. They're a phenomenal band. They're actually going to be coming back together soon. Ross from Brave Giant is now one of the lads from Amble. Well, he's a mountain there. So, like, in fairness, it doesn't mean just because you had one goal doesn't mean you can't go again. Do you know what I mean? So, like, I always think you should be reinventing yourself. But, you know, obviously when things are going good, keep it going. But if you know it's time to move on, don't be afraid, because let me tell you something. Time is a son of a bitch, and it's not going to wait for you. Sorry for cursing.
No, it's okay. Thank you so much. That was fantastic.
Rock and roll. Yeah, give me one of them twos there. Yeah. What are these? The two as well. Yeah. Kitty.